Welcome to the final episode of the Simchelor Daddy Edition. Today, one of our finalists will win the competition and the heart of our Simchelor Daddy, Pedro Pascal. But before we do that, let's talk about this crazy-ass season. We began this season with the very first split household in Simchelor history. Everyone seemed more interested in Ted Roswell, though, than they did in Pedro. However, London and Liam emerged as the most interested in playing the game. That week, London Ivy won the very first challenge and subsequently the first eggplant. Members from the house were asked to move on to the next phase, and some were cut. In week 2, we met the second half of the cast, and boy howdy was it a mess. From starting fires in the house to blatant woohoos in front of Pedro, over half the cast was unqualified to move on to the next round. Pedro chose to go out with Gina, but during their date, she erased his memory, and she was immediately up for elimination. With almost no one else up for consideration for a date that week, half of the house was eliminated, and no one won an eggplant that week. However, a few hand-selected were chosen to move on to the next stage. In week 3, the houses merged, and a past contestant returned to the competition. We saw, once again, a damn top. The challenge that week was to play ping pong with the other members of the house to determine who would go on dates with Pedro. The winning team got to spend time at Pedro's house and make their moves, in which Sandra Douglas was very quick to do so in front of the others. Sandra won the eggplant that week, which was a bit on the nose, and unfortunately we did have to say goodbye to Caden Crimson, who hadn't broken through personality-wise, and did not seem to be that interested in Pedro. In week 4, the Sims got to participate in the classic singing challenge. Some were hits, and many were misses. There were endless heckles, and most of the contestants performed quite badly. In the end, 2 emerged as the best, and those 2 were Liam and Gino. Liam was performing well up until this point, but Gino was really beginning to emerge as the frontrunner. In a final duet battle, Liam won the eggplant and a karaoke date with Pedro. They spent some time in the ocean before woohooing in a hallway and spending the evening in the nightclub. That night, Kira Frias was eliminated for being disrespectful in the challenge towards the other contestants, and due to his incredibly poor performance in a shocking second elimination, we also said goodbye to Cyrus Durant. In episode 5, the Great Sims Cook-Off was the most shocking episode yet. The Sims were tasked with cooking a signature meal for Pedro, in which Ted took over Audrey's station, Dallas cooked in a wedding dress, and Tevin kept wandering away from the challenge area. Unfortunately, as time ran out, Audrey's food mysteriously disappeared, and she was up for elimination as a result of having nothing to judge. Pedro enjoyed several of the options, but the one who rose to the challenge was once again London Ivy, winning his very second eggplant. Because Audrey had no food to judge, she was unfortunately eliminated. Additionally, Ted Roswell was eliminated for violating food safety and cooking in underwear. Plus, I really wanted to eliminate him since his very first arrival in the house. Sandra barely squeaked through the competition that week, and I was certain that would be her breakthrough moment to be a finalist. In week 6, the Sims were tasked with the creativity challenge, where in round 1, they needed to create beautiful paintings. Alexandra Esteep was the winner of the first leg of the challenge, but had an emotional bomb during judging and died from being over-enraged. This disturbed and disrupted the challenge irreparably. The competition had to keep moving, and the Sims moved on into leg 2, in which they had to trim bushes to move on to the final leg, which was woodworking. During this portion, Tevin once again kept walking away from the challenge area and decided to leave the competition once and for all. The top 2 of this week were A Damn Top and London Ivy, and London won his third date, which was a night on the town with Pedro, where they watched fireworks and enjoyed the city nightlife. At this point, with 3 eggplants, London seemed like the only one who would win the entire competition. Despite a death and a walkout earlier, there was still an elimination that night. And between Liam and Dallas in the bottom, Dallas hadn't formed any kind of intimacy with Pedro, and she was unfortunately eliminated. Week 7 was my favorite challenge of all time, Makeover Week, and Pedro finally joined the house to take the group to Mount Komorebi for vacation week. Because of how small this cast was, no one went home this week. Moving into week 8, things seemed glum in Mount Komorebi as chemistry with Pedro really seemed to diminish. Even frontrunners like London and Sandra were lagging behind the others. Adam, surprisingly, put in the most effort and continually tried to hang around Pedro. The Sims built snow pals with Pedro before going to the onsen, where we learned that one of our Sims smelled like a dirty diaper. The final group outing was to the bar where Pedro was almost entirely alone, and I was worried that everyone was miscast. We learned that, for some reason, Pedro and Sandra had a festering grudge and hated each other, and London and Liam were hooking up with each other all vacation. The only Sim who wasn't a complete disappointment was Gino, so he won the eggplant that week by default. In a shocking twist, Sandra was eliminated that night after such an incredibly high performance through the competition. Then, doom was spelled out in week 9 after a Sims update which made Pedro fight with literally everyone in the house. They all seemed to turn on him. Each of the Sims had terrible dates where they offended and fought with Pedro, and one even told him that they didn't like him at all. This was a frustrating and disappointing week, and a hard choice was made to finish the season without a winner and to cut the competition entirely. However, in a last-minute change, 4 months later, the competition resumed by bringing back old contestants to see who had chemistry with Pedro to return to the competition in week 10. Pedro met with Jasmine first, but she immediately hooked up with Ted O'Malley at the bar, and a random assassin killed Ted before the date abruptly ended. Next, he met up with London Ivy, but things were tense. That didn't stop them from eating ass at Planet Honey Pop, though. Date 3 was with Liam, where they hooked up immediately and snuggled on the couch of the nightclub, securing Liam a spot back in the competition immediately. Pedro then went to the beach with Dallas, who I had very high hopes for before her elimination. And it was exciting to see her again. She seemed nervous, but things went well overall with them, and their romance bar built quickly. After Dallas's date, Pedro met up with Adam, and the dirty diaper scent returned, meaning that Adam was the stinky one in Mount Komorebi all along. The two of them had absolutely no chemistry, and the date ended early. The next date was with Gino Vo, who met up with Pedro at his house, and the two of them really seemed to enjoy each other, as well as each other's bodies. The next date was with Tevin, because I felt bad that he walked out the first time, and I felt that he deserved another chance. Things seemed to go well romantically, but Tevin revealed that he was a bald king with a wig, on top of being a childish person. In the final date, Pedro met up with Anya Fonseca, the very first Sim out of the house, and he learned that she was a horny Sim before she went upstairs to hook up with a random dude, proving why she went out early. That week, the decision was made to bring back Liam Bowman, Gino Vo, London Ivy, Dallas Lillard, and Tevin Cassidy. With just 5 Sims back in the competition, it was time for individual dates in week 11. Things went well overall on each date, and Pedro took couple photos with each of the finalists to determine who would go on to the final challenge. After an extremely awkward date with Tevin, Katrina Caliente was assassinated, once again getting exactly what she deserved in this life and the next. Gino pulled forward this week as being completely invested in the competition and stole Pedro's heart, winning the eggplant this week. I felt that I needed at least one more week with this cast, so the competition was extended once again. However, Liam was up for elimination again, but he was in the bottom with Tevin, who unfortunately was too childish to keep in the competition long term. Week 12 is where the fire really got hot. Pedro went on individual dates to the nightclub with each of the remaining contestants, as we decided that we needed one more week to spend with them. Some of the dates were nice and others were complete misses, and in the end, Liam got the chop right before the finale. As we go into the final week, who are you rooting for to win the whole thing? Are you Team Dallas? Are you Team London? Or are you Team Gino? Let's see what happens in this final episode of the Simchelor Daddy Edition. This is the Simchelor. Who will win the Simchelor Daddy? Happy finale day! We are going to find out today if Gino Vo, London Ivy, or Dallas Lillard are going to win the heart of Pedro Pascal. We have gone through a very long and fun season, and here we are, finally at the top 3. Who are you rooting for to win? Who do you want to be the Simchelor Daddy winner. Let's jump in here and see who is going to win Pedro's heart. For this last week, we are going to go on one final date with each one of the contestants, and one at the end of this week will be the winner of the Simchelor Daddy edition. Starting out with Dallas Lillard. We're gonna keep it close to home today. We're here at the lounge on our very first date with Dallas Lillard. At the beginning of the competition, I was really excited to see yet another mage in the competition. They're always a really fun time to have in here, and I was really excited to see what Dallas was going to do throughout each one of the weeks. And in the first couple of weeks, she was just on a very quick decline and went home kind of unexpectedly. And so needless to say, I was pretty disappointed that she went home when she did. I was really hoping she'd make it all the way. So when we called everyone up to go out on dates with Pedro to see who could return to the competition, I was so glad that Dallas performed well and was able to make a positive impression. And now here she is, being a really early out to now being a finalist. The two of them have so much romantic chemistry and really seem to enjoy each other. Their friendship, though, is not as strong as it could be. Throughout these last couple of weeks, Dallas has really proved herself to be a good confidant for Pedro in particular. Their specific sentiment is that they are smitten with each other, and I think that is a good sign for future romance. The one thing that is on Pedro's mind is who does he desire? He's unsure right now. We've learned that Dallas is open to the idea of children, and Pedro's now asking if she really enjoys spending time with him. But she kind of killed the mood by saying that she doesn't want to hurt his feelings. That is my one big question mark. Are they long-term compatible? Because this is not the first time that she's shown some reservation about being with him long-term. Every time they're together, she feels an intense lust for him. Is this simply lust, or is this actual love? While on this date, Pedro wants to flirt with Gino. I think that's very telling of how he's feeling at this exact moment. However, they did just gain a new sentiment. Closer from happy memories, Pedro feels close to Dallas from good times and happy memories. And yet, their friendship has not gone up yet. I really am getting the feeling that they are really more just great lovers rather than interested partners with each other. But maybe that could change. Maybe that is just for now. They've only gotten to know each other for a couple of weeks. They've only started getting closer as of late. Dallas had half the amount of time that some of the boys had in this competition, and yet she has really pulled through to the front of the pack. We're now at the exact same location with London Ivy. London is someone who won challenge after challenge after challenge and really felt like a frontrunner for the longest time. And as the competition went on, he and Pedro really started to drift as London started to develop interests in some of the other Sims in the house, which was really disappointing to see. I'm not even gonna lie for a second. And when everything ended, I really did not think there was any recovering, especially that date that came afterwards. I didn't think that London had any chance of returning to the competition, but I'm so glad that he did. London has proven again and again that he is here for love, and he does everything he can to flirt with Pedro these days. They both have enamored sentiments with each other, and they're deeply in love as well. And I continually get the feeling that the two of them have some of the best chemistry in the competition. They really seem to allow conversation to just flow. And they also have a lot of similar interests. I think what really helps with the two of them is that they are extremely attracted to each other and have some really great sexual chemistry. And throughout the entire competition, London was someone who I thought was going to win the entire thing. And I think he still has every possibility of doing so. I definitely love the idea of the two of them. And I think I could see it long term. But I've kind of always felt that way, especially with how well London did throughout the entire competition. We are now on our final date with Gino Vo. Gino is someone who really snuck all the way to the front in the last couple of weeks of the competition. Up until the midpoint, I didn't really think that Gino was a serious contender. It was around the time of the singing challenge that I really started to pay attention to him. And I liked Gino. From the very start, I thought he was so cute. I thought he had a lot of really nice points. And I think as the competition has gone on, Pedro has seen that as well. The two of them have the highest romance and friendship meter of every competitor. They also have smitten and deeply in love sentiments with each other. Gino only has 2 wins in the competition, but those wins came at really critical points, I think, right when things seemed like they were on a downhill. And I think of everybody, I think Gino has really shown the most growth in the competition. And going from someone who I did not think was going to be a front runner, someone who I thought was going to be a mid out, Gino really surprised me with how well he ended up doing week after week after week, continually making himself seen and shining through all of the lackluster performances from everybody else. Plus, Gino constantly makes Pedro feel good about himself. Pedro feels like he ticked off something on his list that he really wanted to do, and that was flirt and spend time with Gino. Throughout his other dates, he was thinking about Gino, and this is not the first time this has happened. I love their chemistry with each other. They really seem to mesh in a way that nobody else does, and I just see them together long term. It is now that time to make my very final deliberation of the season. We have our 3 contestants, Dallas Lillard, London Ivy, and Gino Vo, all with really excellent points of why each of them should win the heart of Pedro Pascal. Starting with London, he has great sexual chemistry with Pedro. I think even though they had their slip up in week 9, I do think that there is a lot of potential for long-term relationship and for friendship to develop over time. Dallas Lillard is someone who Pedro really enjoys being with, and again, they also have really great sexual chemistry. They're very high in romance, but they're not great in friendship. The only problem and my big pause and hesitation is that Dallas doesn't see herself long-term with Pedro Pascal. So does that mean that they are incompatible? And then, of course, our sleeper contestant, Gino Vo, who I was not expecting to make it this far. And over the last couple of weeks, he has really risen to be a front runner in the competition. He also has the highest amount of friendship. And as the old adage goes, you should marry your best friend. I need one more thing. But before we can have that, I need to eliminate one person. And the one that sticks out in this competition as being someone who I don't think is going to make it all the way is Dallas Lillard. Unfortunately, this is her time to go. And because she does not see herself long-term with Pedro, this is unfortunately her time to go. It's been such a fun time getting to see her in this competition, and I'm so glad that we got a chance to see her come back. I wish that she hadn't gone home when she did, because maybe, just maybe, she could have been a finalist. But it is not her time, and I will be sending her home. For being in the top 3, she will receive 500,000 simoleons to help her in her journey going forward. And now there's just one more thing that I need to see. We have taken our finalists out to a night on the town, back at the lounge, to see what happens in one final evening. This is the very last chance for London and Gino to prove themselves and their love of Pedro. Kind of weird to party on a Wednesday night, but hey, there's no better time than the present to make your moves. Pedro is making moves up here, and he is trying to burn down the dance floor, but I always forget that he kind of dances a little bit like a white guy. I don't know where the spice is, but it's certainly not here. And here the 3 of them are, our finalists. Who of them will make the final move in this very last outing? London is flirting with Pedro very casually. Currently, London is feeling inspired. He wants to become a master mixologist. And he's now made a move with Pedro, which Pedro, of course, has accepted. Looks like the two of them are off to go do whatever disgusting public play they were planning. And he wants to join in on the fun with the two of them. Now that they've wrapped up in that very odd shower room in this bar, which, why are there 3 showers? They've come to sit down in this lounge area to chat with each other. And Gino is the one who's remained here while London walked away. London is heading upstairs to go make more drinks. He really wants to become a master mixologist. While Pedro and Gino just make out on the couch down here. I feel like it's become clearer than it ever was before. And I am ready for my final deliberation of the season. We have some really great reasons to allow either Gino or London to win. Gino, who continually throughout the competition rose to the occasion, made himself better and more known every single week. Or London, who started really strong, faltered a bit, and rose back to where he needed to be. But there is absolutely something to say about being in a relationship with one of your best friends. And the winner of this season of the Simchelor Daddy Edition will be Gino Vo. Congratulations to the incredible new Simchelor couple. I am so happy for the two of them. Unfortunately, what that does mean is that London is eliminated from the competition and did not win. This was not his time. But I have a feeling that this is not the last time that we will see London Ivy. Keep an eye out because maybe he'll appear somewhere in the future. And with that, we end a fabulous season of the Simchelor Daddy Edition after coming in with 20 competitors, a surprise edition from a previous season, continuous back and forth shenanigans, craziness, and left turns that I was not expecting, deaths, people walking out of the competition. I'm so glad that we got to have such a fantastic time together, and thank you for everyone who participated in this project, tuned in every single week, and stuck around through that very dramatic break. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did.